Hey everyone, in this video you're going to learn each and everything that you possibly need to know about HTML. My name is Huzaifa Sultan and this channel is all about learning how to become a highly paid IT professional fast. So in this entire video that we're going to have, we're going to talk about HTML. This is going to be a complete course on HTML in which we are going to cover each and everything that HTML possibly has to offer. And if you watch this video from the beginning to the end, I can assure you that by the end of this video, you will know every single thing regarding HTML, from how to create a web page, how to create a website, how to create the structure of the website, how to add content in the website, images in the website, each and everything. So now let's discuss that what actually is HTML. Now HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. That is basically the full form of HTML. Now it is known as the language of the internet, but why is that? The reason behind that is that HTML is actually the first language that you need to learn when you get yourself into the website development field. This is the language that is going to help you develop the web page. This is what the language that is basically going to help you bring a website in existence. It is going to help you not only develop the website, but also create the skeleton of the website, add content in your website, and a lot of other things that we are going to discuss. So that is why we call it the language of the internet, and it has a lot of significance. Now, as we already discussed, that it is used to develop a website as well. So that is a use of HTML as well. It helps us develop web pages, websites as well. Now, moving on, what will be the learning outcomes of this entire course? What are you going to learn in this entire video that we have? What will be the things that we will be going through? So first of all, we will learn how to create a website using HTML. We are going to learn that how can you create a web page first, then how can you create multiple web pages, link them together, and how to make a website out of it. That is one thing. Now, then we are going to learn that how can you add content inside of your web pages? How can you add some kind of text, headings, paragraphs, any kind of text that you want to add, anywhere that you want to add? How can you actually do that using HTML? This is what we are going to discuss. And then we are going to discuss about adding images into your web pages. Now, adding images is actually something that we will understand in quite some detail, because there are many different ways that you can add the image. There are two types of ways. We will discuss that as we go on further in the video and when we get to the adding images part. So we're going to discuss that as well. Moving on, then we're going to learn about how to edit text in HTML, the absolute and relative path. Now, this is a very important concept. We are also going to learn about file handling in HTML. We are going to cover lists in HTML. We are also going to be covering tables in HTML, adding media in HTML. Now, in adding media, we will learn how to add Google Maps inside of your website, how to add a YouTube video inside of your website, and many other things that you can do with this. Then we are going to see that how can you actually use links in HTML. Now, links in HTML are used to connect many different web pages together, because that is how you basically make a website. A website is just multiple web pages that are linked together. So we are going to see that how can you actually make that all possible? How can you do that? And then we are going to learn how to add videos in your HTML file. And then we are going to discuss at the end the most important part, the most integral part of HTML, that is forms in HTML. So those are basically all the things that HTML has to offer, and we are going to go through each and every one of them in a lot of detail. So without wasting any further time, let's begin. Alright guys, so let's begin now. So the first thing that you will need is, you basically, whenever you want to write a code in HTML, or whenever you think about web development, you need to download some kind of text editor. Now, a text editor is basically a software that is going to help us in creating the web page, writing all the codes, and writing all the HTML code that we want to develop that web page, and whatever we want to add in that web page. So for that, you need a text editor. And there are many different text editors. The one we will be downloading is known as Visual Studio Code. So just to download that, all you have to do is just open your browser. You just have to type in Visual Studio Code. And now I probably misspelled that. Okay, so now what you need over here is, you can just go for the first link over here, or you can just click on the download over here. So once you do that, you will reach on to this page. And now if you're a Windows user, you can select this option. If you're a Mac user, you can select this option. And once you do that, the software will start downloading, and that is pretty much all you're going to need. So once the software downloads, you're just gonna set it up. It's very simple, very easy. I've already done that. So I will just open this up. And when you have downloaded it and when you open this, then this is basically what you will see. So once the software is downloaded, if you want to basically just work with me as I am showing you I'm going to show you many different things in HTML. So you can just download the software and then you can just follow me. So now the first thing that you're going to do is once you download it, you will reach on this screen. So first of all, we are going to click on the new file option over here. So that is the first option. I'm going to select that. And then what we are going to do is once you have created the new file, you're going to go ahead and you're going to save this file. So that is going to be your first step to save a file. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the file option. You can just click on save over here. And then you can just save it anywhere. Now I'm going to save it on my desktop over here. So I'm going to select desktop, and I recommend that you do that as well so that the file is easy to find basically. So start by giving your file a name, any name. For example, I will give it a file name of new file. Now remember one thing, your HTML file name should not have any space between it. And also your file name should not start with a number. For example, I cannot write over here one new file. That will be wrong. You have to start with a letter. However, after the letter or the word, you can add a number. That is completely fine. So don't add a space. If you want to separate the words, you can just put a dash or otherwise known as a hyphen over here. But that even if you don't do that, that is fine. But just don't put any space. Now, once you're done with that, the next thing you will need is you need to add an extension over here. So you might be wondering that what is an extension? An extension basically is the type of file that you're about to create. Now, there are many different extensions. The most common example will be like, for example, when you download an image from the internet, from the browser, often you will see that with the image name, you have something like .jpg or .png written with it. Those are basically known as your extensions. So the extension is just the type of file that you're creating. So the type of file that we are creating over here is an HTML file. So I will put .html over here. Now this is an important step, so don't miss that. So make sure you have the extension over here. So once you do that and you click on save, you will see the name of the file and the extension that will pop up over here. Now one thing, let's just check if it is actually working. So if I just minimize this and go back to my desktop over here, you will see on my desktop the new file has been created. A web page has been created. So I'm just going to open it up. You can double click it. You don't have to do what I'm about to do over here. I'm just opening it in a different browser. That is why I'm doing that, but you can just double click it. As soon as we do that, you can see we have already created an empty web page. So it just took us minutes to create the web page. So this web development subject in general is very easy. HTML in general is very easy to understand, and this is the best language for the beginners who are just trying to get themselves in coding. And when you are getting started with web development, this is what you want to learn. So we already have a web page. That's great. So now what we are going to do is we are going to start by writing the code over here. Now, one thing you need to understand is that in HTML, everything works on the concept of tags. So there is basically a tag for every single thing. For example, if you want to add a text on your website, you need a tag. If you want to add an image, you will need a tag. For a video, you need a tag as well. For every single task that you want to do, you need to put some kind of tags. Now, what are these tags? How do they look like? So a tag basically looks like this. You start with a less than sign. You write the name of the tag, whatever that is. This is just an example. And then you put a greater than sign. Now, as soon as I do that, you will basically notice that another tag pops up over here. So I'm just going to separate them. And for a while, just notice what is the difference between them, between both of the tags. Now, the first one does not have a slash, as you can see. And the second one that came up over here has a slash. So now the one without the slash is actually known as your opening tag, and one with the slash is known as your closing tag. So that is the entire difference. Now in HTML, mostly every tag has a opening and a closing tag. There are some exceptions. Some tags do not have a closing tag, but we will discuss that later on. But for now, every tag has an opening and a closing. How do you know it is an opening or a closing? You will notice the slash. If it is a slash, that is a closing. If it doesn't have a slash, that is an opening. So good enough. Now we know what are tags. So now first let's start by writing the syntax. We have to first create the structure of the file over here before we can add something onto our website. So how will we write that syntax? How will we create that structure? That is very simple. So I'm going to take the most simplest approach towards it. And then after that, I'm going to show you other ways to do this as well. So the first thing you need to do is you need to add HTML tag. Now, once you do that, again, two tags pop up, one with the slash, without the slash, opening and closing. Now you're going to press enter and maybe just make some space over here. After that, the next tag that you need is known as the head tag. You will add that and then you will press enter again. Inside the head, you add many different things, but for now, the only thing that we are going to enter is basically a title. So title tag over here. Now what is a title? Title is the name of the web page that you have created. So it can be anything you want. There are no hard set rules what should be a title and what it shouldn't be. It can be absolutely anything. It does not matter. So over here we are just going to say my web page. That's it. So now as I save this and I open this, okay, now one thing to notice over here, I almost forgot to tell you that every time you add something in your HTML file, you have to click on file, then you have to click on save. Now, if you don't want to do that again and again, you can just check the auto save like I have done over here, and then you don't have to save. You just write anything you want and just open your web page again, click on refresh. Now take a while to see if you see the title anywhere on this screen. So if you haven't noticed it already, the title is on the top left corner of my screen on this little tab that I have opened over here. This teaches you two things. The first thing is title appears over here in the tab. The second thing, if you notice, let me go back to the code over here. In the code, you will see I have added the title inside the head. So the head is basically known as this top tab or this top part of your website. The tab is actually known as the head of your website. Now you must be wondering that fine, I know how to add something over here, but how do I add something on the white screen if I have to? So that is very easy as well. So if you want to enter anything over here on this screen, then all you need to do is you need to add a body tag. So it makes sense because the head is on the top, body is at the bottom. So this entire white space that you're seeing is known as the body of your website. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go back again after the head over here. You're going to add body tags. So now you will enter a body tag over here again, opening, closing, both pop up. And now we are going to start by adding a heading on our website. So let's add any kind of heading over here. Let's see how can you add a heading? How can you do that? So that is very simple, very straightforward. To add a heading, all you need to do is you need to add a tag called H1. So now that you add an H1 tag over here, you can very simply just go ahead and just type over here, this is a heading, for example. So you must be wondering, okay, the tag for the heading is H1, but why specifically H1? Why didn't I use H2? Why not H3 or why not H4? So I will get back to that and I will explain that. But for now, let's go ahead. Let's just save the file over here and let's go back to our web page and let's try to refresh it. And as I refresh it, you will see on the top over here, I have the heading appeared. So that is how you can add any kind of text onto your web page as well. Fine. Now we have the heading over here, we have the title, everything is set. Now let's say that you want to add a paragraph over here. So how will you add a paragraph? Now adding a paragraph is very simple as well. All you need to do is just go back to your code. And now after the heading, now think about now you have to add the tag for the paragraph, right? So what is the tag for the paragraph? So think about the first letter of the word paragraph. That's right, it's P, and P is the tag for paragraph. Now I'm just going to write anything over here. For example, this is a paragraph. You can enter anything. You can enter an actual paragraph as well, but I'm just going to enter some kind of dummy text so that you can see it. Now again, make sure you save the file if you don't have the autosave enabled, and now go back and hit refresh, and there you go. You got a paragraph over here. So paragraph, you can see, appears in a much smaller text over here. The heading is all big, bold, and the paragraph is just like a normal text, small text. Now, let's just imagine a scenario. Let's just create a scenario over here. Let's say that we are developing a website, and on that website, we don't have the content of the website yet. For example, you haven't decided what kind of text are you going to put in the website yet. You haven't decided that content that is going to go inside that website. So in that case, the problem is if you can't enter in, if you haven't decided the text, the content that is going to go inside that website, you just want to build the website right now and then you're going to worry about the content later on. The problem is you cannot build a website with a bunch of blocks here and there. It will not make sense after some time. Just imagine a website, you open a website and it just has a bunch of blocks here and there and bunch of colors here and there, and it has absolutely nothing inside of it. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're developing some kind of website for another, for a client, for example, and that clients ask you that, just build me a website, I haven't really decided the content yet, then it becomes a problem. So you can't deliver an empty website basically. So what will you do is you will basically add some kind of dummy paragraph over there. Wherever the text is supposed to go, you will add a dummy paragraph, a paragraph that will have a bunch of words just to fill that space where the text is supposed to be. So how can you add that kind of dummy paragraph? So to do that, HTML provides you an option. What you can do is you can type over here in the paragraph LOREM, lorem, and now you will specify how many words of paragraph do you want. So let's say we want 100 words of paragraph, so I will put 100 over here. Make sure about one thing, that I have not added any space over here between the lorem and the 100. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select this option. And now I'm going to go back. Now you can see that a bunch of random random words have just popped up over here. So now if I just save it, I go back and I refresh it, then you can see over here that the paragraph has appeared over here. So that is how you can add a dummy paragraph inside your web page. So now most of you will basically have used Microsoft Word. Now, as you know, in Microsoft Word, you can make something bold, you can make something italic, you can underline something, you can do all kinds of stuff. So now the thing is, how can you make something bold? For example, in over here, if you see, we want the first line over here till the full stop. We want this first line of the paragraph to be bold. So how do we do that, right? So let's get back to our code and let's try to figure this out. So I'm talking essentially about this line over here, as you can see. So if you're going to make this first line bold over here, then all you're going to need to do is you're going to need to add a B tag. It kind of makes sense. Why? Because B stands for bold. So now you're going to remove the closing tag over here because you don't want to close the B tag over here, and you're going to add the closing over here after the word elite over here. Now, why did I do that? I basically added the bold tags around this tag so that around this text so that this entire text can become bold. So if I wanted just one word to be bold, then I would close the bold over here. If I wanted just wanted to make these set of words bold, then the bold tag would close over here. Right now, I want to make the entire line bold, so I'm closing it at the end of the first line. Now, if I save this, and first sentence actually, now if I save this and I go back and I refresh it, so in this case, you will see that as I refresh, the first sentence has become bold now. So good enough. Now we know how to make something bold. Now there is another tag that you can use as well, and that is called the strong tag that essentially does the same thing. If I add the strong tag over here, then I can just save it again. And now when I go back and I refresh it, it does the same thing. Nothing really changes. So either use a B, either use a strong, your choice. Now let's say that after that, we want to make this entire text that you see over here. We want to make all of this italic. So how are we going to make this italic and how is this going to work? Now think about the first letter of the word italic. That's right. The first letter is I. So all you're going to do is you're going to go back and now you're going to use an I tag over here. Remove the closing tag, and the tag is going to be closed at the end of the paragraph over here. So I'm going to close it before the P tag and just put a less than sign and put a slash over here. It just closes itself. Now as we go back and we refresh this, then there you go. Everything is now italic. Now over here, let's say that now the next thing that you want to do is you want to make the heading over here underline. So how will you underline the heading? So to underline the heading, what you're going to do is you're going to go back and you're going to find yourself the H1 that you were looking at before. So over here, what you're going to do is you're just going to use a U tag over here. Then again, you're going to remove the closing and the U tag will close after the text over here. And now once you do that, now U again, very simple, very easy to understand, U for underline. So now if I go back and I refresh it, boom, there you go. So the heading is now underlined. So you can see how easy this language actually is, how English oriented this language is. So it is very easy to understand and very easy to code as well. So now we know how to make something underlined, bold, italic. So that is all good. Now let's consider another thing. Now let's say that after this full stop that you see, there is a full stop over here. Now after this full stop, what I want is I want this entire text to go to the next line. Essentially what I'm saying is after the full stop, I want to break the line. This entire text should move towards the next line. How will I do this? Now, if I was in any other text editor, for example, if I was in Microsoft Word, this wouldn't have been a problem because I would just go back. After the full stop over here, I would press enter. Simple enough, right? So now if I save this and I go back and I refresh, absolutely nothing happens. So in HTML, you cannot do that. In HTML, you basically need to add some kind of tag over here. So now go back again. And now what you're going to need is you're going to need a tag called the break tag. So the tag over here that you're going to use is known as a BR tag. So just use a BR tag over here. And now you will notice one thing, something odd about this tag. If you haven't noticed it already, this tag did not appear with the closing tag. Now, why is that? The reason behind this is that this tag actually is known as a self-closing tag. You don't really need to close the break tag. So now what you will do is you will just simply go back and you will hit refresh, and now you will see that the line basically the line break occurred over here and the text just went to the next line. You can add multiple as well. For example, I can add one more BR over here as well. So now I have two of them. And now when I save it and I go back, I refresh it. So now I have more space over here. So that is basically how your break tag works. So good enough. Now for now, I'm just going to keep one of them. So there we go. Now we know how to add the break tag over here. Now the next thing is, let's say that we want to make this entire text go in the center of the screen. So to center something, it is very easy. All you will do is you will basically just add center tag over here. Now again, you will see that there is a closing tag. Just remove that. And we are going to close this tag after the paragraph. So because we want the heading and the paragraph both to be in the center, so I'm just going to close it over here. And now when I go back and I refresh it, so there you go, the heading and the paragraph both are in the center now. Now let's consider another thing. Now the next thing is, let's say that between the heading and the paragraph, we want a horizontal line over here, a line that basically goes throughout the entire screen. How will you do that? How will you make that happen? So that is very simple. All you will need is you need to go back, and after the heading, you just simply need to put an HR over here. The HR stands for horizontal. It will help you add a horizontal line. Again, a self-closing tag over here. You do not need to close it. You can just leave it as it is. Now you're going to save this, you're going to go back, you're going to refresh, and boom, there you go. You see a horizontal line that goes throughout your entire screen. So how easy was that? So that was basically about how to add text into your HTML files and how to edit your text in the HTML file as well. Now, a lot of this editing is actually done through CSS. CSS is basically the language that you use to design the web page. HTML is specifically built to add content inside of your web page, how to basically add some kind of content, how to add images, just to create the skeleton or the structure of the website. The design part is all controlled through CSS, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of knowledge of if you want to edit the text, then how can you do that as well. Now, let's say that we want to add some kind of image over here. How will we do that? If we want to add an image in our web page, how does that work? How can we do that? So that is very easy to understand. All you will need to do over here is you need to go back. And now what you will do is, after the paragraph, let's do that. So after the paragraph over here, I am basically going to add an image tag, img. So that is going to be my image tag. Again, a self-closing tag that does not require to be closed. So now what you're going to do is inside the image tag, now think about this. The image tag basically is it looks like an empty tag over here, because where do I specify which image do I want, right? Where do I actually specify that? So this image tag needs something known as an attribute that will help it function properly. So the attribute that I will need over here is going to be added over here. Now remember one thing, all the attributes are added inside the opening tag. So by that I mean that it will be added after the G over here. So inside the tag right over here before the greater than or the more than sign. So the attribute that I need over here is known as the source attribute. So what you're going to do is you're going to write src over here. You're going to put an equal to in quotes. This is how your attributes work generally. So whenever you want to add an attribute, you're going to go inside of the tag and then you're simply going to use the src over here. This is known as the name of the attribute, and after that we have an equal to and quotes over here. So whenever you see this kind of structure, you can automatically tell that this is actually an attribute. Now in the source attribute, you can add two things. Now for that, you need to understand the concept of absolute and relative path. Now let's just discuss the difference over here. So what is the difference? Now absolute path, basically, I'm talking about this one. So the absolute path is used whenever you want to simply go into your browser, search for an image. You just simply copy the address of this image and you paste it in the source over here. That is known as the absolute path. So you can call it the internet path, where you're not really saving or downloading the image. You're simply picking an image from the internet, you're copying the address of that image, pasting it in the source, and that is it, right? And then the second one is the relative path. Now, relative path basically means that you already have an image on your computer, or you have downloaded some kind of image on your computer, and now you want to add it to your website. Then how do you do that? So we're going to discuss both of them, but first we're going to discuss the absolute path, the internet path basically. So now what you're going to do is you're basically going to go onto your browser and you're going to search for an image. So I'm just going to search for scenery images over here, for example. So I'm just randomly going to pick any image that I find over here. So let's just go with this image that we have. Now all I need to do is I need to right click on the image, and now I need to basically copy the address of this image. So over here you will see there is an option of copy image. Sometimes if you're using a different browser, it might say copy image address. Both are fine. You can, if you're getting an option of copy image, that is fine. If you're getting an option of copy image address, then that is fine as well. But for now, sorry, we actually have to do the copy image link over here. So that is the one we need to select. So sometimes it's copy image link, sometimes it's copy image address. So I'm going to select this, and now what we are going to do is we're going to go back, and in the source, in the quotes over here, I'm going to paste it. Now often these links are very long, so that is completely fine. So now let's just go back and refresh this, and let's see if the image actually appeared. So as you can see, as I refresh, the image appears over here. So that is actually the image does work, but there is actually a drawback over here. The absolute paths have a little drawback that sometimes the links are way too long. There are very long links, and sometimes the problem is that if the image that you have added through the internet, if that image gets removed from the internet, from your browser, then what happens is it gets removed from your website as well. So this is not the professional way, but it works. The best way would be to use the relative path that I'm going to show after this. So now what you're going to do is you're simply going to go back, and now you will notice over here that the image actually is a bit too big. So how will we adjust the width of and the height of the image if you want to? So you can do it very easily. All you need is you just need to go back, and now after the source over here, after the quote of the src, you can add over here another attribute of width. So once you add width over here, you can just add some kind of width. For example, I can add 400 over here, and now when I go back and I refresh it, you can see it got a lot smaller over here. The image size decreased. Now if you want to decrease or increase the height over here, then you can do that as well. You can put height, and then I'm just going to use not 200 but 150 over here. And now when I will go back and refresh it, so there you go, you can see it got a lot thinner over here. Now we know how to adjust the width and the height, but now the thing is, what is 400 and 150 that I used? 400 and 150 are referring to basically pixels in your website, right? So this is 400 pixels and 150 pixels. So now we know how to add the image using the absolute path, and that is all clear. So now let's talk about how can you add it through a relative path. So in a relative path, you need to download the image. So I will just show you an image that I have already downloaded over here. I will just remove the image tag over here, and I will just add that again. I will just add image src once again. And now I will show you an image that I already have. So over here, you can see I have an image called book over here. And one thing to notice is that this image has to be where your HTML file is saved. So my HTML file is on the desktop, so the image has to be on the desktop as well. If the HTML file was in a folder, that basically image has to be in that same folder next to the HTML file as well. So that is actually important. Now, This image, you can see it has the name book, but you need to check the extension of the image. So for that, you can just right click on the image. You can go to the last option, properties, and then you can see it says JPG over here. So now all you're going to do is you're going to go back and you're going to write over here book.jpg. And now once you're done with that, you're just going to simply save this. And now once you go back and you hit refresh, now you can see that that image also popped up over here. So that is how you can add an image. Now this is the best way to add the image because now your image is secure, it is not going anywhere, and it is basically just going to stay here as long as the image does not get deleted from your computer or from your folders. And the probability of that is very low. Image being deleted from the internet can be a very common incident, so you might not want to do the absolute path. The best way is to add it through the relative path. So now that we know how to add the image, now let's try to add a link over here. So what is a link? Now a link is basically some kind of, you can say, it is basically something that helps you connect files onto your website. For example, I can add a link over here that will help us go to a different website, or I can link a lot of my web pages together as well. So first of all, we will create a link over here. When we'll click on that link, it will take us to some website, let's say, that is already on the internet. Then we will do it through the relative path, in which we will see that how can you create two HTML files and how can you link them together. So now links in HTML are actually known as anchor tags. So I will just write it over here as an H2, and I will write over here anchor tag. Now, as I go back and I refresh it, you will see a heading appear. Now, you will also notice that this time I used an H2. What happened over here? The H1 is actually the biggest size of the heading. And over here, you can see H2 is actually a lot smaller than the H1, right? Similarly, H3 is even smaller than H2, and then you can go all the way till H6. So H6 is the smallest size of the heading and H1 is the largest size of the heading. This is actually the difference between them. So H1 to H6, you can use any one of them. You can put multiple H1s as well, multiple H2s as well. That does not matter. As long as you basically just, as long as you're not really designing anything, it doesn't matter. But when you're actually using some kind of CSS, then you have to use something called IDs and classes, but that is not our concern right now. So H1 is the largest size, H2 is smaller than H1, and then we have H3. I will just add that over here as well, so that we can see that as well. So now if we add an H3, not an H2, I will just correct that over here. And now when I go back and refresh, you can see that H3 over here is even smaller than H2. So that is how all these headings are working. Now over here, what I'm going to do is to add an anchor tag or to make a link over here. I have to basically put an A tag, then put a space and write an attribute href, otherwise known as hyperreference. So you can just select this option. And after the quotes, just put a greater than sign. Now, between the tags over here, you will write the name of the link. For example, click here. And now in the href, you will basically, href is known as hyperreference, where you will put the link of the file that you want to go to when you press this link over here. The website that you want to go to, the web page that you want to go to when you press here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and refresh, and I'm going to show you how does this appear. So you can see the link kind of appears like this over here, as you can see. So that is good enough. So now what we're going to do is if we click it, nothing really happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select Google over here, and I'm going to copy this link on the top, this URL on the top. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm simply going to go back and I'm going to paste this in my code over here in the href. Now, as soon as I do that, and now when I go back and I refresh this, now you will see when I click on this link over here, it takes me straight to Google. Now, if I click on the back button, I can come back. So you can link any kind of website, anything you want over here, and it will work perfectly. So this is basically how you can add some kind of link over here. Now, the next thing over here is that you can actually link your own HTML files as well. So now let's actually discuss about the file handling concept that is going to help us do all of this. So far we have basically learned how to add the headings, text, how to add image, how to create a link, each and everything. So now let's discuss more about relative paths and file handling in HTML. So over here, what I'm going to do is the first thing is I'm going to go over here to my desktop and I'm going to create a folder over here by the name of website. Now, one thing to notice over here is that when you're building a website, you can't really put everything on your desktop, because in a real website you will have many images, many videos, many files. So a lot of them you can't just put all of them on your desktop. So you will need to create folders for each and everything. You have to organize everything. Your images will be in a separate folder, your videos will be in a separate folder, your other files, all of the files are basically in their own folders. So what you're going to do over here is in the website folder, I'm going to create another folder called images. Now inside this folder, I'm going to put my image that I have over here. I'm just going to put it right over here. So now you can see that the image is now over here, as you can see. So good enough. Now the next thing that you need is you need to put your HTML file in this website folder as well. So remember one thing, you can never move or drag and drop your HTML file anywhere. So the best, because that will basically just break your file, because if I do it, if I just put it over here and now if I go back and I refresh it, then it will basically say that the file is not found. So that is something you don't want to do. So what do? You basically go ahead and you are first going to delete the file. So go ahead and completely get rid of the file, delete the file. Now I'm going to open the Visual Studio again, and now you can see on the top it says deleted. I'm going to click on file and I'm going to click on save as over here now. And now I'm going to select the folder that I want to save it in, and I'm going to resave it. So every time you want to move the file, just delete it and resave it. That is going to prevent from the error that prevent you from the error that we saw right now. Now just reopen this file. Now to open it, I'm just going to right click on it. I'm going to go open with Firefox. You don't have to do it. You can just simply go ahead and you can just double click it. But now you can see the file is working, although we have a big problem, and that is that we are basically seeing a broken image icon over here. So why is that? You need to understand this. So this is because you can see over here now your HTML file and the image are not at the same location, because your image now is actually in a folder known as images. So now if I open this folder, only then I can get to my image, right? Because now the image and the file are not together. The image is now in the folder. I will have to give a path to this image now. How will I do that? So for this, you need to understand that first of all, I'm going to remove everything from the image source over here. Now you have to understand the file handling concept over here. First of all, you need to understand this is your starting point. This HTML file is the starting point. From here, you're going to specify what is the name of the folder which contains my image. So as we know, that is very simple to understand. It's just images. And now what we need is we need to open this folder. So to open this folder, you simply need to put a slash over here. Slash indicates that there is a folder named images. Open that folder. Once we do that, we just click on the option that we are getting over here, book.jpg. And now once I do that, I will save this, I go back, I refresh this, and there you go, the image comes back once again. So that is how you can do it, right? So let's just take another example. For example, you have two folders. In the images folder, you have another folder, let's call it library, and now let's put the image in this folder. So good enough. Now we have it over here. Okay, let's figure it out. Starting point is this. First we have to open the images folder, then the library folder, and then we get to it, right? So how? I'm going to remove this and do this again so that you can understand it. Now again, starting point is this. So first of all, go into images, then go into library, as you can see, and then you can connect to your image. So now after doing this, I save it, I go back, I refresh it. You can see nothing changes over here. That means everything is working perfectly fine. So this is how you can jump into as many folders as you want. Now, the thing is, how do you get out of a folder if you have to? How will you go back to a folder? So for example, what do I mean by that? Let's create another thing. Now over here in the main website folder, I create another folder called HTML files. Now I know I can't drag and drop my HTML file into this folder, so I will have to delete it. I deleted it. And now I will basically go over here. As you can see, it says deleted. File, save as, and now you will see I just created this folder HTML files. It's this one. So I will just select that, save it again, and there we go. The file has been saved. Now you need to understand one thing. Now what I have to do is I don't have any folder over here. So I can't really go into any folder. To access my image or to go to the images folder, I first have to go back to the website folder. I have to go back one time. I have to press the back button over here. So once I press the back button, then I can go to the images folder, library folder, and to my image. Now the thing is, how do I go back? How do I go one step back if I have to? So if I want to go to the previous folder, what I will have to do is I will basically have to put over here dot dot slash. Dot dot slash means go to the previous folder, whatever it is. You never have to specify the name of the folder you're going back to. Just write dot dot slash. That means go back to the most immediate folder that you have before the folder of HTML files, which is website over here. So it will just go back to the folder. It will go back one folder. And then you can see it is giving me the option of selecting the images folder, library folder, book.jpg. There we go. And now when I open the file once again, let's see if it works or not. 100% it works over here. As you can see, it is still working. So this is basically how you can give your images a relative path over here. So now if you need to go back two folders, then you will simply put a dot dot slash once again, and that will take you back two folders. Again, you never have to mention which folder are you going back to. You don't have to really mention the name. Just think of it as the back button. If you press back button once, then you can go to the images folder. So I just added dot dot slash once. If I had to press the back button two times to get to the images folder, then I will put a dot dot slash two times over here. So you can remember it like this as well if that makes it easier for you. Fine, now we know how to do the file handling with the images. Now let's get to the links, and now we have to understand how to link your HTML files together. Very simple. I'm just going to create a new folder over here, which I'm gonna give it a name of second file. Again, try not to put any spaces between the folder name. Make sure they are basically they're one single string over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file over here, and now I'm going to save this in the second file folder, and I'm going to name this file2.html. And all we are going to do is we're going to add the HTML tag, we're going to add the head tag, the title tag, and we are going to just name it, for example, file2, and I'm going to add the body tag in which I will enter an h1 called this is file2. Why am I doing this? Because I just want to specify that this is actually the file that we want. So I'm just going to open this up. So I can just open it up from over here. So I can just right click it. Again, you don't have to do this, and we can select open with Firefox, and there we go. So this is the file2. This is the file that we were working on before. So both of them are open. I'll open the other one as well because I know I moved it before. So I will have to open this again in the Firefox. So I will just do that right now. And perfect. Okay, great. Now we have both the files over here. Now what I want to do is when I click on this link over here, I want to go to the file2.html over here. How do I do that? How do I make this possible? So this is very simple. Now go to your new file, and now I'm going to remove this link that we had before over here. And now we are going to give the address of the file2 over here. Now as you can see, you're over here right now. So if you want to go to the file2, you first mention the name of the folder that contains the file2.html. So that is second file. As you can see, I'm getting the suggestion / to open it, and then when I open it, you can see I see the file2.html. So I can just simply write over here file2.html. And now when I go back, I refresh, I click on the link, and I straight go to file number 2. Now on file number 2, I want a link over here, and when I click on that link, I should go back to where I came from. That is the new file.html. So how do I do that? Again, this is also very easy to understand. So in order to do that, what you will need to do is you simply need to basically go to file2, add an anchor tag again. So ahref, and then you can just write go back over here. Now, if I want to link file2 to the second file, to basically the new file.html, then you know that I have to press the back button first. I have to go back to the previous folder, and then I can link to new file.html. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write over here dot dot slash to go back. And as soon as I go back, I can see it says new file.html. I'm going to select that. And now when I open this again, I refresh this. Okay, now let's try both of them. So first, we go to file2, and then we click on go back. We go back to the file we came from. So now this is how you can connect your web pages together using the concept of file handling. So this is how your file handling works. So good. So guys, now we have understood that how you can actually create many different files and how you can now link them together. How can you use the file handling concept? So all of this now should be clear. So now what we're going to do is now we're going to see that how can you actually add videos in your HTML file. So if you didn't notice, then I already had a video over here. So I'll just bring it over here next to my new file.html. Now let's say that we want to add this video inside of our HTML file. So how are we going to do that? So in order to do that, we basically have to first of all figure out the name of the video, that is flip, and then we will figure out the extension. But before that, let's see what is actually the tag to do this. What is the tag that we need to add a video? So the tag is very simple and it is kind of self-explanatory. I will just do that in the new file.html over here. So over here, first of all, I'm just going to give it a heading over here, adding videos, just so that we can create section for every single thing. And now what we are going to do is we are going to add a video tag over here. So to add a video, you need a video tag, open and close it. And now what you will need is you can just write over, you don't really need to put anything over here. You can just add an attribute over here of src source. You can see it is very close to the image tag. The only difference is that video actually has a closing tag as well. And now what you can do is just simply give the name of the, first of all, figure out the extension of the video. So for that, right click, go to the last option, properties, and then you can see it says type of file MP4 over here. So that is basically how I know that this is a dot, the extension of this video is .mp4. So what I need to do is I just need to type in the name flip. You can already see I have a .mp4 option over here. I will click on that. Now when I go back and I refresh this, you will notice that the video actually popped up. But this doesn't really look like a video because how do I play this? There is no play or pause button over here. So how will I do that? So in order to add the play and the pause button, you basically need to go back and you need to add another attribute called controls. Now controls is an empty attribute. You can either just put it like this and leave it empty, that is fine, or otherwise don't put the equal to and quotes at all, that is also fine. You're not supposed to add anything over here. Now when I go back and now when I refresh it, so you can see I got the play and the pause. I can play the video, I can pause the video, everything works. I have my volume tracker over here. This video does not have a sound, so the volume is just not working right now because the video, I removed the sound from the video. And then you can go into the full screen from over here and you have all the options that you need. Again, if you need to adjust the width, you know how to do that as well. You can just simply go over here. You can select width over here. Let's say we can just put over here something like 400, or let's just put 600 for this one. So I'm going to put 600, and now when I go back, I can just refresh it, and there you go. The video gets a lot smaller over here. So that is basically how you can add videos in your HTML file as well. So good. So guys, now so far we have learned a lot from adding videos to adding images to a lot of things that we have discussed. So now the next thing that we are going to be discussing is basically the concept of lists in HTML. So the concept of list basically works like this, that you're going to go back, and now what you're going to do is, I can basically just create a new file for this one so that we can just understand it separately. So I'm just going to create a new file. I'm going to save this and I'm going to just save it over here by the name of lists.html. So now again, we are going to add all the tags over here, the HTML tag, then we add the head tag, the title tag, and then we can just write lists over here. And then finally we can add the body tag. And now the thing is, if you don't want to write all of this on your own, then you can just simply put over here an exclamation mark and select the first option. That will give you all the things that you need. So over here, you will see an extra thing that is doc-type HTML. That is just an optional tag that you can add in your files that just specifies that the document type of this file is HTML. Again, if it is not there, it doesn't make a difference. The language English is just specifying that the default language of HTML is English. So again, this is something we don't need because by default it is English. And then we have a bunch of meta tags. Now, meta tags are actually some special purpose tags. They're beyond the scope of this course right now because they're not used in HTML. They're used with CSS. They basically help us to support in a lot of basically SEOs, and they help us support in responsive web design as well. So in short, basically, meta tags help us in everything from making a website responsive. That basically means that your website will look absolutely perfect when you go onto a phone screen. It will basically assist us in that, but we have to add separate codes for that. That is a part of CSS, where you make a website perfectly compatible with a phone screen, with a tablet screen, with a TV screen, a laptop computer screen, all of that. And they're basically used in a lot of other things as well, but then again, that those things are not used in HTML, so we're going to skip them for now. So for now, even if you want to remove them to keep them out of the site, that is completely fine. Now the rest of it is exactly the same. You can see we have the title over here, so I can just give it any kind of title. For example, I can put over here lists. And now let's begin with the list. So now the first list that we are going to discuss is the unordered list. Now the tag that we use for the unordered list is known as UL. When we're going to add that, the UL is the tag for unordered list. I'm going to press enter over here, and now the next thing that you will need over here is known as a list item. Now every list has an item inside of it, so to add the list item, we are going to add the tag li, and now I'm going to enter a first list item, for example water. Then I'm going to add another over here, that is tea, and then I'm going to enter one more, that is going to be coffee. So now we have all of them open. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find our file. So my file is right over here. And now if I just go over here and I click on this one, so I'm going to right click it. I'm going to say open with Firefox over here. And now you can see something like this pops up. So it is called an unordered list because it does not really have some kind of order. It does not have a specific order. For example, nothing is over here specifying that this is the first item, second item, third item. There is no order of A, B, C or 1, 2, 3 over here. So that is why we have just bullet points and we call them unordered list. Now, with that, you can also have another one that is known as the ordered list. That is another list that we have. And the ordered list is basically has the tag OL. And now the other ones are the same. You have a list item over here, and now you can write over here. Let's just say, let's add some other items over here. I'm going to enter one more. And now I'm going to save this and I'm going to go back and I'm going to refresh this. So now when I do that, you will see that for this one, you will actually notice that you have a specific order over here of 1, 2, 3 going on. So that is indicating that this is actually an ordered list. So we got the unordered list on the top, we got the ordered list over here, so that is good enough. So now we know how the ordered list works, we know how the unordered list works. Now there is actually another list that we use that is known as the nested list. So now we need to understand that what is actually a nested list. Now a nested list basically is a list within a list, right? So how can you make that? So let's just start by the simple UL again. So what we had water, and then we are gonna, sorry, in the UL, we basically have to add the LIs. I forgot that. Okay, great. Now in the UL, we have the LI. I'm gonna enter over here water, and then we are gonna enter coffee, and then we are gonna enter the tea again. So we are essentially doing the same thing once again. So if I go back and refresh, nothing too interesting. The same thing kind of pops up again. But now what I want is that below coffee, I want an option of hot coffee or cold coffee, right? I want to add a sub list over here. So how do I do that? How do I create a list specifically, a sub list specifically for the coffee LI? So for that, what you're going to do is you're going to go back, and before the closing LI of the coffee, you're going to press enter over here. And now you will make a new list. It can be an OL or it can be a UL. That does not matter. We are just going to go with OL, for example. Now we press enter, we add an LI, and we are going to say hot coffee, and we are going to give another option of cold coffee. So now when I save this and I go back and I refresh this, so there you go. So we got water, coffee, we got hot coffee, cold coffee, and we got tea over here. So we have basically, essentially we have everything that we need over here. So now this is basically how you can add a nested list. Now if you want to add a nested list for the hot coffee as well, you know how to do it. It's going to be the same thing once again, that before the closing LI of the hot coffee, you will press enter, you will add another list. This time I will enter a UL. It does not matter whether you want to use a UL or an OL, it is completely your choice. And then I can say, for example, with sugar or I can say without sugar. That is completely your choice. And now when I go back and I refresh it, so there you go. It basically gives me this option over here of choosing with sugar or without sugar. So that is basically how lists in HTML work. This is how you can add any kind of list in your website. And there are basically three major types of lists: the unordered list, the ordered list, and the nested list. So these three are basically something that you can use. So now that we are done with the unordered list, we are done with the ordered list, and we are done with the nested list, let's actually talk about adding media into our website. So how can you add media in your website? So let's start by discussing how can we add a Google map onto our websites if we have to, right? So how can we make that possible? It is extremely simple and extremely easy to add. We need something known as an iframe tag. Whenever we are trying to embed something inside of our website, we need the iframe tag. An iframe tag is basically something that is used whenever you want to pick something from another website and you want to display it onto your website, right? For example, Google Map is an application. We were picking up an entire map and we are displaying it onto our website. Similarly, we have YouTube. We can pick a video from YouTube and then we can display it onto our website. So how can we make all of this possible? So that is something we need to understand. So for the Google Map, it's very simple. I'm going to give it a heading of adding maps. And now we don't have to add any tag on our own. All we need to do is just search for a map basically. So we're going to just search for, let's say, USA Google Maps. You can search for anything very specific as well, but I'm just basically searching for something very general. So what we're going to do is we are going to load the map. You can select any location if you want to, any specific, basically a company, or you can select some kind of any kind of location that you want. So now if you click on the share option, once you will select something, it will give you, this will pop up and you will see a share option over here. So click on that, and once you do that, it will give you an option on the top, embed a map. You will select that, and then it gives you an option of copy HTML. You're going to select that, and now you're going to go back and simply paste what you copied. Now let me make it full screen to actually show you what this actually is. So over here you have an iframe tag. You basically, like I said, the iframe tag will help you bring something onto your website over here. So now let me just show you first that how does it actually appear. So if I refresh it, you will see that actually a map will load. It takes some time sometimes to load. Now you can see it has loaded, and over here you can see this is a fully interactive map. You can actually zoom in, you can zoom out, you can do everything over here. So this is a fully interactive map that you can add over here. Now you can put this onto your website. For example, if your website is about a business needs to read, basically every business would want that the customers can reach them easily. So how can they do that? They can do that like this. They can add the location of their business over here, so everybody can kind of just click on directions and it will just take them to Google Maps, and it will just start directing them from their location to the location of that business. And it helps them to basically reach out to customers, and customers can reach out to them quite easily. So these are the features that you can add using the iframe tag. Now back to the iframe tag. The iframe tag basically helped us to kind of pick that entire map from here, and then it just basically brings it to your website over here. Now first of all, you have the source in which you have the URL or the link of that entire map, and then you just have the width, height over here. That is all you have. The width and the height, as you already know how they work. Then you basically have over here a style attribute over here. The style attribute is used for CSS. So all it is doing is that by default there is a border around the entire frame over here. So let me just remove this, and now I will just go back and refresh it. You will see this border was not there before, but now it popped up. So what this style border 0 is doing, it is basically removing this border over here, and now you cannot see it. So that is the only purpose of that. Allow full screen, it basically helps you to full screen the map if you want to, because when you click on directions it does get to full screen. So yes. And then the loading lazy, this will set the loading time. Basically right now it's lazy, that is why it is basically taking this much time over here. So loading, you can actually control that as well using this attribute over here. If you don't want it, you can just remove that and it will help the map to load a little bit faster. So this is basically how your entire iframe over here is working. And the same thing can essentially be done through a YouTube video as well. We will follow the exact same process for that as well. Alright guys, so now that we know how to add a Google map, let's try to add a YouTube video now. So how are we going to do that? So for that, I'm just going to give a heading over here again of YouTube video. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try to add a video over here. So again, that is very simple. You're just going to go ahead, you're going to go to YouTube and you're going to select any video of your choice, whatever you want. And now what we are going to do is once you select the video, I've already selected a video over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the share option over here. And once I do that, you will see an option of embed. So I'm going to click on that and then we are going to click on the copy option on the bottom right corner. So I'm going to click on that and then you're going to just simply, you're going to just go back again to your code and paste what you have copied. So again, the entire iframe tag once again pops up. It has the same width, height, source, and other attributes that are necessary to basically make it work. And now when you will go back and you will just click on refresh over here. So just go down and you will now in a while you will see that the YouTube video loads over here. You can play it and then again it just plays and you can pause it. You can do all kinds of stuff over here. You can get suggestions. So the entire YouTube video just embeds over here. So that is how you can add a YouTube video into your web pages as well. So guys, so far we have discussed a lot of different things, and we've basically started off with some basic text, editing text, images, links, videos, relative paths, absolute paths, and a lot of lists, a lot of other things. So now we are gonna move to the second last topic of our HTML. That is gonna be the concept of tables. How can you add tables in HTML? How do we build them? So let's take a look at that. So for that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna open up your Visual Studio once again. And now we are gonna just make a new file for this because we just want to keep this a little separate. So I'm just gonna make over here tables.html over here. Again, save it and start with just, now you can just put the exclamation mark. You don't have to write that again and again. I'm going to change the title to tables. And now I'm going to start by putting a heading of tables in HTML. And now whenever you're making a table in HTML, let me give you an example over here first so that it basically becomes a little easier to understand. So I'm just going to write tables in HTML and let's see what do we come up with. So essentially we will be trying to make something that actually looks close to this, what you're saying over here. So we're going to see how can we build something like this, how can we bring it to our website and how does it work. So first of all, what we will need is we need to go back over here. And now what we are going to do is we're going to start by making a table tag. Simple, right? Just a table tag, makes sense. Now you're going to press enter. The next thing you want to make over here is a table row. Now you can see the first letter of the table is T and the row is R. So the tag for this will be TR. You're going to start by making a row first row over here. Now in this first row, you have two options. Either you can add a table heading, either a table data. Now it is not really, there are no hard set rules that which one should you actually add. Should you add a table heading or should you add a table data? That just depends on what kind of table it is and how do you want it to look. So right now, if I show you the example over here, you will see that the first row over here is all bold. The number is bold, full name is bold, position and salaries both are bold, and the rest of it is basically just simple text, random or just regular text. So the ones that are in the bold are actually known as your table headings over here. Now in this table, the first row was actually the headings. Now over here, you can see the first row is also table headings and then the first column is also table headings. So again, it just depends what kind of table are you making. So let's just stick to this and let's make our, now we have made our first row and then our first row, we will add table headings. So the tag for that will be TH as in table heading, and I'm going to make the first table heading name, then another one called address, then another one, I'm just going to make another one called contact. For example, these are the three headings that we will add. Now I'm just going to go back and let me just open this up first. So you can see this is it. So right click, open with Firefox, and there we go. So we have the first three headings over here. Although you will notice it doesn't look anything like this. Where are all the borders? Now the thing is, all those borders that you're seeing over here are added through the help of CSS. Now just for clarity and just so that you can understand this concept, I'm going to add a little bit of CSS over here. Although our main goal right now is not to understand CSS, so I will just basically try to explain this right now, but don't worry if you don't get this. So first of all, what you're going to do is, because our main focus is HTML. So first of all, after the title, I'm adding style tags over here. What is a style tag? A style tag essentially is known as a style sheet over here, in which you will add everything that you want to design about your website. You will add it up here. Now, first thing in the style sheet is you will basically specify which tags are you trying to edit over here, which tags do you want to kind of beautify or design over here. So the tags that we want to edit over here are the th and the td, table heading and the table data. Even though I don't have table data, but I will have it after some time, so I'm just doing it right now. Then you put curly brackets and press enter. Now you're going to write what do you want to change about this, or what do you want to add to this. So we want to add borders onto them. So I'm going to write over here border. I can just select the first option. And now you're going to specify over here what will be the width of the border. So the width of the border, I want it to be 2 pixel. PX stands for pixels. The style of the border. What does the border look like? It is basically going to be a solid border over here. Solid means one single line without any breaks inside. And lastly, all you're going to do is you're just going to write the color. I'm going to select black. So now we are done with this. Let's go back and hit refresh. And there you go. Now it is starting to make a little bit of sense. Now it looks something close to, now it's starting to take a shape of a table. Good. Now what I want is that on the next row over here, below the name, I want a name, below address and address, below contact a contact. How? So for this, what you're going to do is you're going to go back. After this row, you're going to make another row now. Another TR. Now you're not going to enter a table heading, we are entering a table data now. And now we are going to specify, now first heading is a name, so we will specify a name. The second one is actually an address, so I'm going to specify an address over here. Then we have the contact, so again another TD, that is going to be some kind of contact over here. Okay, now when I go back and I refresh it, so you can see that yes, we have the name, we have the address, we have the contact. Good enough. Let's just make a few more entries over here. So let's make another one over here, another TR, another row basically, another TD, another name. Then we are going to enter another address. And then we are going to enter another phone number. Now we are done with this. So now if I go back and I refresh it, then there we go. We have that. And we're going to make one last over here. And for that, again, you're going to make another row. You're going to make another table data over here. And then you can put another one over here. So now another TD. And now finally another number over here. So now when I go back and when I save it, I go back and I refresh it. So this is how you can just pretty much, you can keep on adding as many rows as you want over here. I'm going to make one final row over here, another one, and I'll let you know why am I doing that. So I'm just going to copy this over here and I'm just going to change this, and the rest of it can be the same. Let's just change the number over here. Good. So now we have it. Let me just save it again, and there we go. Okay, now it's good. So now what we have is we basically have a couple of entries over here. Now we know how to make the table, that is fine. But now what you will notice over here, let's look at this. Now George and Kelly both basically have the same address, let's say, right? They both are in Canada. Now instead of writing this 2 times, what I can do is I can remove the last one over here, and then I can stretch the first one in such a way that it covers the first row and also the second row, right? So this Canada actually is going to cover George, and it is also going to cover Kelly. How? Let's see. So first of all, remove the one over here. So you're going to go back and you're going to remove the last one over here. So I'm talking about this one. I'm going to remove this entire tag over here. Now, as I do it, I go back, I refresh it. You will see that the phone number kind of pushed back because it wanted to fill the space. Now we will make this Canada cover this row and also this row. We are going to make it cover 2 rows. So now you're going to go back, you're going to find that table data, and then inside that you will add an attribute called row span. Now in the row span, you want to write how many rows do you want it to make it appear on. So you want it to appear on 2 rows. So I'm going to write 2 over here. And now when I go back and I refresh it, you will see how now the Canada is covering the first row, George, and then it is covering the second row, that is Kelly. So both of them are covered over here. So that is basically how you can use the row span. You can span it as much as you want. You can put it on 3 rows, you can put it on 4 rows, as much as you want. Now over here, the next thing is, over here you will see name and address. Now name is covering all the first column and address is covering the second column. So what I want to do is I want to remove the address and I want to stretch the name all the way till here so that it covers the first column and it also covers the second column. So how are we going to do this? So first of all, again, you will have to remove the address over here. Now when I go back and I refresh it, you will notice that this happens over here. So now what we want is we want the name to cover the first column and the second column. So for that, I'm just going to write over here in the name, I'm going to write an attribute called span 2. And now when I go back and I refresh it, you will actually notice that the name over here, the name heading covers the first column and also the second column. So this is how your row spans and column spans work. Now you can also give your table a name over here. So to give my table some kind of name, what I need to do is I can go on the top and after the table, I can add a caption over here. And in the caption, I can just type in, for example, personal info. So now when I go back and I refresh it, so there we go, and we have it. So that is how you can create tables in HTML. So now we are done with the tables part, and the final part that we need to learn is basically how to create forms in HTML. This is very important and a very integral part of HTML, and forms are something very commonly used in any kind of website. So how are we going to do that? So let's take a look, and for that I'm just going to make a new file over here. We're going to keep it separate. So forms.html, and now I'm just going to put the exclamation mark again. I'm going to change the title to forms, and now we're going to start with this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to first start by adding the form tag. Simple enough. We are trying to make a form, we add a form tag. I'm going to make a heading over here by the name of forms in HTML, and now we are going to start. So first of all, let's open up an example over here. So the example over here that I'm going to open is of a Gmail sign up form. There's no quite reason that I'm opening that. It's just for an example, just to show you how to visualize a form basically. Now this is a form over here, a sign up form that is asking for a first name, last name, username, and then a password and confirm password. Then we have a checkbox over here as well that says show password or hide password, and then a button that says next or sign in, whatever you want to do. So now you will notice these boxes over here, these boxes where you can enter something. You can enter a first name, last name. These boxes are actually known as input boxes. You call it an input box basically. So how do we create this input box? How can we add them in HTML? How does that work? So to add them in HTML, what you need is, you need to go back, you need to open this up, and now you need to add over here an input tag. Now remember one thing, input tag is a self-closing tag and it requires 2 mandatory attributes, 2 very important attributes that it has. The first one is the type and the second one is the name. Type basically refers to the type of data that you're about to enter over here. For example, I want the first input to ask the user for his name. So the type over here is going to be text, because a username can be a group of words, it can be a group of numbers as well sometimes. So you're going to keep it as text. So now whenever you're asking for a name input, it's always a text. Now the next thing is over here you have another thing that is basically a name attribute. What is that? A name attribute means that you are giving a name to the entire information that is supposed to go inside of this input. You can give it a label, you can give it some kind of name. For example, if I'm asking the user to enter his name over here, the name of that information will be username. Simple enough, right? Now remember one thing, this name is not for your HTML files. It has nothing to do with that. It is related to your backend file. Now, when you will submit this form, it has to go to a database or to a PHP file basically that will process all this information. So over there, the name will be sent in this way. For example, let me just show you the input first over here. How is the input appearing? So I'm just going to open this up. I'm just going to right click this and I'm going to say open with Firefox. Okay. As you can see, after entering the name, I can see this input that appeared over here. Now I can enter any kind of name over here. Like for example, I can enter my name over here. So now let's say that once I enter my name and I submit it, how will it go to a PHP file, right? To a backend file. It will go it like this. It will say username equals to the name that I entered. So it is really important that we actually label the information so that when this information goes to a processing file, to a PHP file, it can actually, it knows that this is a username or is this some kind of basically like a first name or a last name. What is it? So you're labeling your information, you're giving your information some kind of name over here. Alright guys, so now we do have the username, but now if I go back and I refresh this, you will actually see that it doesn't specify over here that enter your username. So for that, to bring that up, I will have to enter over here a placeholder that will say enter your username. And now when I go back and I refresh it, so now you can see it does work. And now the next thing over here is gonna be, we are gonna enter two BR tags over here so that we can send the next input to the new line. Now the type is going to be email, the name is going to be user email, and the placeholder over here is going to be enter your email. And we're going to make one more for the password over here as well, and then we will take a look at this, that how is it actually working. So this one is going to be password, the name is going to be user password, and the placeholder is going to be enter your password. Now, once I go back and I refresh it, you will actually see that we are now seeing something like this. So for the password, you will see it actually appears like a password, and the email is gonna take an email, and then the name actually takes a name. Now over here, what we are gonna do is we're gonna create a submit button. So for that, I'm gonna use the same input tag, but this time the only thing that will change is that the type will now be submit. The name is also gonna be submit. And now when I go back and refresh it, so now you will see we have a submit button over here as well. So for now, what I can do is if I enter a name over here, I will just enter my name. I will enter some kind of email over here, and then I will enter a password over here. So now when I submit it, you will see nothing really happens over here. And now where does the information go, right? So since we don't really have any kind of right now at this moment, we don't have a PHP file that will receive all this information. So right now what is happening is all the information is on the top over here. As you can see, username equals to the username I entered, email equals to the email, and password equals to the password over here. So everything is appearing on the top. Now another thing that you can enter is a text box over here that can be used to take some kind of details from the user. So to create the text box, what you can do is I'm going to create it after the password over here, again 2 BRs, and then I'm going to enter over here text area. That is a tag that we use. Then we're going to give it a name. I can just give it details. In form, everything has to have a name, so just be careful about that. The placeholder, I'm just going to say enter your details, for example. This can be any kind of details. So now when I go back and refresh it, so now you can see you have a text box over here. You can resize it as you want to, and this is how it looks. But now the thing is, by default it looks pretty small. So to kind of make it larger, what I can do is I can give it some rows. I can give it, for example, 6 rows, and for the columns I can give it 60 columns. And now when I go back and refresh, now it looks bigger. So this is how you can enter your basically enter name, email, password, anything like that. Now another thing that you can do over here is you can basically enter some checkboxes. You can make some checkboxes as well. So to make a checkbox, what you will do is I will first go on the next line. I will make a heading. I can just say choose a drink. And now you can enter an input over here, the type over here. The type is going to be checkbox, and then the name. The name is basically what the checkbox is about. So my checkbox is about drink, so I will give it the name of the drink that the checkbox is about. So I will just put water over here and then water in front as well so that the user can see it as well, right? If I don't enter this one, then the user can't see it. So now if I go back and refresh it, so you can see how the checkbox is appearing over here. So we can add a few more over here. So we can make another input, another type, checkbox again, another name, another drink, and now just one last over here. So another input tag, another type of checkbox, and then another name of a drink. So there we go. So now when I go back and refresh, I have 3 checkboxes, and you can see I can check all of them if I want to. And that is how you bring your checkboxes over here. Now for the radio button, now let's say that you basically just want to choose one option at a time. You don't want the user to select more than one options. Then what do you do? In that case, you will create a radio button. So for that, what you will do is you will basically, after the last checkbox, I will make a heading of choose only one drink. And this time what I will do is I will write input type. Now this time the type is going to be radio. The name, now you have to be a little bit careful. The names of all the radio buttons have to be exactly the same. So for this, what I can do is I can, because you want to basically group all of them, you have to basically put them all under the same category. So the name of all the radio buttons, I'm just going to keep them drinks because essentially they are drinks. And now I can write over here the same thing, but I'll just change it a little bit. So let's just put juice over here and just name of other drinks basically. So another one, then again, you're going to put type, radio, name, and drinks again. And then again, you're going to name a drink. So after that, one last one. So I'm just going to copy this one and we can just paste that on the next line over here. So for this one, we can change it to anything else. So now the problem is, if all the names are drinks, then how will the processing file differentiate between the juice, milk, and the soda? So for this purpose, you will add a value over here. The value will be actually be the name of the drink. So this is a little difference between the checkbox and the radio buttons, that the checkbox need to have the same name, but then you have to put different values. In the radio buttons, you have to put the same name and different values. In the checkbox, you can basically put any name you want to. That does not matter. So be careful about this difference, because otherwise the radio buttons will not work how they're supposed to work. So if I go back now and refresh it, the main difference is you will see that you now actually have the radio buttons that are circular. So if I select an option, you can see I can only select one at a time. I cannot select more than one over here. So that is something that you can actually do. Now, the next thing is that how will you actually put over here some kind of, let's say, a date selector. If you have to select a date of birth or something like that, then how do you do that? So to add some kind of date selector or something like that, what you can do is you can add another, I'm just going to make 2 BRs first, and I'm just going to write over here, select your date of birth. For that, now another input tag, and now the type over here is going to be date, the name is going to be date of birth, for example. And now when I save this and I go back and refresh it, you will see I have a date selector over here. Over here, I can enter any kind of date. I can actually choose from dates as well. So I can select any kind of month, any kind of year, and then I can just put that over here and it will start working. So that is how your date selector works. Now, again, another thing over here is you can also put a file selector. So for that one, 2 BRs again, and I'm going to add an input. Type is going to be file, name, I'm just going to write document. And this is something you see very common actually. So if you go back and now if you will click on the browse option, you will see you actually can select any option. So if I select the image over here, you will see the image gets uploaded and you can see the name of my image being appeared over here. So this is how you can add multiple like date features and a lot of them. Now there is another one that is actually the color selector. So if I put two BRs again, and now if I go to input, I can select a type over here of color and then the name of same thing color. So now when I go back and I refresh it, you will see a color selector pops up. If I select on it, I can actually choose from any specific shade of color that I want. I can just change the shades over here as well. I can use anything over here and that will get uploaded over here. So let me just close this. So yeah, so that will basically get uploaded over here. Whatever I will select, I will click on OK and that will be uploaded. So you can actually have the color selector as well. Then you can also basically create some kind of select menu over here. So to create a select menu, I will give a heading, choose a company. And now let's just create a drop down menu for some company. So you're going to make a select, first of all, you're going to make a select tab and then you're going to write option over here. And now your option can be anything. For example, the name of the company is over here. So we can enter the first name over here. We can enter another one over here. And then we can enter one more over here. So now when you save this, you go back and you refresh it. Now you will actually see that you have a drop down menu over here that you can select from. So that is how your drop down menus work. Now, one last thing that we are going to do with this is a number selector. For example, often when you visit some kind of online merchandise store, then they ask you how many items do you want to order. If you select an item, they will tell you, do you want to order one of them, two of them, three of them, how many would you like to enter? So how do you create something like that? So for that, what you can do is you can just create another heading over here and you can say, for example, how many would you like to order? And now input, and now you're gonna put number over here. Oh, sorry, type number. Yeah, type number, and then you're gonna put over here a name. Name can be quantity. Over here now, if you go back and you refresh it, you will actually see that you can select any kind of numbers over here. You can also type them in if you want to. That can also work. And you can also limitize it. For example, I can set over here minimum of 1 and maximum of 100. So if I go back and I refresh it, so for now what will happen is that if I try to put 0 and I try to submit it, then it will say please select a value that is no less than 1. So this is actually working over here. So that is something that you can do. So that is basically most of the features that your form offers. The only one that is left over here is one last one, that is actually the range one. So for that we can just say select a range. Now this one doesn't really properly work with JavaScript with HTML. That is because it needs JavaScript to work, but it will still just appear on the screen and you can just see how it is actually working. So for this, what I can do is I can give it a name of range as well. Let me just put it over here. Now when I go back and refresh it, I will create a range bar over here. So this is something that you see very often as well. Now to make it work, what you can do is you can put a minimum and maximum over here, like minimum 1 and maximum 10. So now we can count it. It would not appear anywhere, but we can count it over here. So for this, we have 2 because we're starting from 1. Then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we know it is working, but then again, we can't really actually see the numbers over here because for that we will need JavaScript. But it does work. Now, a lot of times you're saying that once I write something over here, like I check something over here, I'm having some trouble trying to reset the form because if I refresh it, it doesn't really reset. So how do I do that? So for that, what I can do is I can add another button over here, input, type, reset, and the name can be reset as well. What this will help me do is if I go back and if I refresh, another button pops up, and when I click on this button, you will see the whole form resets back to how it was. So you can actually put this button over here if you want to. So that basically covered the entire features that the forms in HTML has to offer. And now the one last thing that is left is actually the field set and legends. So what are those? Let's take a look. So field set and legends are basically used to create sections in your form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, after the form tag over here, I'm going to add a field set tag, and I'm going to remove the closing tag and I'm going to close it at the very end of the form. So I'm just going to make it a little more clear. Okay, I'm putting it right after the form and I'm going to close it right before the closing tag over here. If I go back and refresh, you will notice one thing, that a border over here has popped up all across my form. So we will do the same thing for this part over here, then for the drinks, and then for the rest of it. So how are we supposed to do that? So for that, first of all, let's just put a field set across this entire area, right? So for this, what we can do is, before I actually do that, let me show you another thing. After the field set, you can also put something called a legend. So let me just add a legend across this heading over here and show you how does that work. So if I put a legend tag over here and I close it over here, now let's just take a look, what is it actually going to do? If I go back and I refresh it, can you actually see how now the forms in HTML are appearing between the lines? So legend actually appears between the field set lines over here. So that is how you can use it. Now similarly, let's create a field set for this part over here. So I'm going to start the field set over here and then I'm going to close it after the text area. Just like this. And then after the field set, I'm going to add a legend. I'm going to add a heading, and the heading is going to be personal info. Now when I go back and I refresh it, so there we go. So there is a typo over here. Let me correct that real quick. Okay, better. So now we have a whole section for this part. Similarly, we can create a section for the drinks as well. So let's do that. So that is going to be the same concept. Once again, you're going to enter over here a field set tag again, and that is something you will close. I'm just going to close it after the entire thing, after even the radio buttons. And now I will add over here a legend tag and then an H1 that is going to be drinks. So now when I go back and I refresh it, so now I have basically added them in their own little section over here. So what this is doing, it is not really making your form look pretty or anything, but it is just making it more readable, and now it actually looks a little more clear. So that is the whole purpose of it. So this is basically how your entire field set legends and your forms work. So now we are also done with the last part of HTML. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope that you understood each and everything that we tried to learn today. So don't forget to check out the video on the right side for more content to help you advance in your IT career.